our channel. If you're new here, I'm Becca, half of Becca and Soph, and I'm joined here today with my friend Chris.
Hi guys.
Chris is an investment banker and he's kindly offered to be part of this series. So this is part of our 10 question series. So we're going to be asking the same 10 questions to lots of different professionals, and Chris is an investment banker. Very exciting. So let's get started. Firstly, what is an investment banker?
Gosh, good question. So I suppose the best way to think about it is you can look at the different types of banking. So it's all within the finance field. And when you look at banking, you can either be in retail banking, which is generally things like credit cards and lending and mortgages to people like you and me. You can look at corporate banking and commercial banking, which is doing similar things but with bigger loans and for companies. Or you look at investment banking. And the idea of that is you're then either doing mergers and acquisitions, so buying and selling companies, or helping those companies to raise finance through debt or equity.
So second question, what do you do day to day?
So our day to day, that's one of the best parts of the job. It's every day is different.
Oh, classic.
So the area that I work in specifically, which we'll get into more detail later, I'm sure, has the opportunity of covering all different elements. So you might be working on a mergers and acquisitions deal one day, or you might be helping a company to raise equity through an IPO the next. And you really do have that point of contact with the client such that every day is different. You could get a random request which comes in the morning that needs to be fulfilled that day, or you could be carrying on with your general back burner tasks.
And then hours-wise, varies?
So hours can vary. As I'm sure you guys are aware from looking at this channel, they can be, there's no way of sugarcoating it, they can be pretty long hours. But the best part about that is the job is, because it is so varied and so different, every day is new. And you really don't feel like you're working quite as bad as perhaps it could be construed.
Did you have any previous experience or qualifications? Like, did you go to uni, anything like that?
So my route was from the University of Warwick, actually.
Ooh,
so if you have a little look, I think there's a YouTube video or two on the University of Warwick on Becca and Soph's channel. So
me and Chris did the same course. That's how we know each other.
If you haven't done already, please make sure you subscribe. That's a shameless plug out of the way. So yes, went to the University of Warwick doing accounting and finance, as Becca said. And my initial route was more looking at the accounting side of things. So a lot of the kind of accounting work behind it. But then I did some more experience in the finance side, and that's what ultimately led me towards investment banking.
Okay, perfect. What was the application process for this role? So when you're applying to your company, what did you have to do?
So the application process is kind of similar for a lot of these large companies, in that you may have to fill in online forms, giving your grades and information. You may then have to do virtual assessments online before you're invited to an assessment centre, and then hopefully a final interview if you get that far.
So like similar to the accounting process of application?
Very similar. Sometimes different companies will miss steps. So I think, for example, JP took you straight to do a virtual interview after you'd done the kind of online forms. And that's where they sift through a lot of the individuals at that stage.
Okay. So how many did you apply for? Did you apply for loads? Like, is that normal? Or?
So it depends. It's a highly competitive industry. So you do need to be able to apply for a number of firms. I don't think there's any secret there in that JP wasn't the only firm I'd applied to. But you do then, as I'm sure you've got plenty more materials talking about, you have to tailor to the specific job and to the firm.
What do you enjoy most and least about being an investment banker?
So the most enjoyable thing, and I'll kind of preface this, as a junior, as I mentioned, you don't get a lot of client interaction. However, the bit that you do is often really valued. So that's the thing that I think is the most interesting part of the role. When you're asked for a certain piece of work or deliverable from a client or one of your seniors, and you then through that start building working relationships with really senior people at these client teams.
And the least?
And the least favourite part, I don't know. A lot of it means it could be very data heavy. So a lot of the time, if you're not careful, you can get lost in the detail and lost in the numbers. So that's one of my areas that I'm trying to work on at the moment. I might be able to produce analysis and data like through extensive modelling, but then taking a step back and thinking, okay, so what's the strategic story behind this picture?
Where can your job take you? What are your next steps and like career path, that kind of thing? So for you and generally for the role?
So many people in investment banking, they kind of go through two different routes. You'll either stay through your investment banking career and work your way up to being more client focused and more strategic oriented.
So that's within the same job?
That's within the same,
or
often
like
within the same firm, but at the very least within the same sort of industry.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can then move to other types of industry. So there's buzzwords, private equity, I'm sure you guys will have heard around.
Yeah.
That's quite popular for people to do their analyst training at something like a bulge bracket investment bank and then move over to a private equity house.
I'll link some stuff below for what all these are, because like even I don't really understand half of these words that Chris always mentions. So, but carry on.
So the kind of options are then to head into private equity a little bit further down the line is kind of a popular choice.
Okay.
My personal preference, again, being very junior and very new to the role, I really enjoy what I do. So I've got no intention of moving into any other industry in the interim.
Okay. So for the time being, at least, like that's
For the time
your
being,
plan.
very settled.
Yeah.
Yes. Some people also will move into smaller investment banks or more boutique to kind of specialise in a particular area, or perhaps to cut their hours and still do a similar sort of role.
Okay.
So that may be a consideration for the future, but for now, yeah, very happy.
Very happy. Perfect. Okay, what are 3 characteristics that you see in people within your job or within your role?
So the first and most important, it is ultimately people are making the business. People make the business. You have to be able to be a good communicator. You have to be friendly and approachable. And if someone doesn't like you, then it's not going to be as easy to build a good relationship and to work as well as being a good communicator.
Okay, so 1. Second?
So secondly would be detail oriented. So it is very, very important to thoroughly understand the inner workings of a model or something you might be building out, such that if someone turns around and asks you a question, as they often do, you need to know an answer to that straight away.
Yeah.
You need to know where the numbers come from, and you need to know that they're up to date.
And how would you recommend doing that? As in, like, just really reading it well and understanding it as you go?
So a lot of it is through experience. You find different ways of kind of solving that issue, but making sure that you understand the piece of work from the bottom up. It may take you longer in the first instance. Say you're handed a new Excel model and by one of your seniors and told to update some numbers.
Yeah.
Really do take the time to get to grips with it from day one, because it'll pay dividends in the future.
Love it, thank you. Sorry, that was 2, and then third one?
Creative would be the third.
Okay.
So a lot of the time when we're not doing numbers and modelling, we're often building PowerPoints to present to clients. So having new ways of doing things, whether it be internal processes or displaying information graphically, can be quite useful.
So not just like putting one of the
You
things
don't just want
between the
tables.
slides and,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, and we don't do transitions between
yeah,
slides.
That's what I was
No.
thinking. Any bright colours and stuff like that.
No swirling text.
Exactly. Okay, next. Anything that you wish you did differently to lead you to this job?
So I'm pretty happy with the route that I took, in that I got the experience from university through the accounting and the finance side and then specialised thereafter.
Yeah.
To make my life a lot easier, I would have definitely recommended to applying to Spring Weeks and to looking at doing summer internships specifically within investment banking, because a lot of the time, even though the firms might be different and the technology might be slightly different, a lot of the time the general processes are the same.
Okay, so Spring Weeks, when do you apply for that?
So I don't know off the top of my head. I think.
Oh, okay. Well, is it first year of uni though, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
So Spring Weeks, first year of university.
And then you have the opportunity of doing a summer internship in your second year of university,
Okay.
if you're successful. And then often it's easier to apply to the Spring Weeks because they're expecting less prior knowledge. And then that could potentially roll through to a summer internship.
Okay, and then in terms of like internships or like placement years, do you need to do like a full year to be able to get into your job, do you think?
Not at all, no.
Okay.
So people are surprised that I joined the role without doing a specific investment banking internship. So particularly for the big bulge bracket investment banks, you are expected to have done specifically investment banking in internship stages.
Big bulge ones, like what would you say?
So the top 2, I mean, I will be biased, but the top 2 are JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have other bulge bracket investment banks like Deutsche Bank, Citi, Credit Suisse, Morgan Stanley, to name a few.
Barclays, Bank of America.
Barclays, Bank of America, they're up there as well. So definitely worth a Google search or as Becca mentioned, there may be a little pop-up showing what some of these terms mean, but worth a look, because I mentioned boutique and bulge bracket around as well.
So how do you decide like which one to apply? You just ask around?
So
kind of
at our sort of stage, would highly recommend applying to both. Apply to different firms in different industries.
Yeah.
Boutiques typically run smaller deals, but in a more specialised industry or a more specialised offering, whereas bulge brackets often run the big blockbuster headline deals that you may see in the press.
Yeah.
But you may be running a smaller part in that. So a very small part in a big machine.
Perfect. And then our 10th question is, what is your advice that you'd give to 18 and 21-year-olds deciding what they want to do in the future?
So my first piece of advice, keep your options open. Don't narrow yourself down into a lot of things that I hear all too frequently, people say, oh, I've always wanted to be in investment banking since I was 6 or since I could walk. No one wants to be an investment banker when they're 6. So, and my route, again, is testament to that, in that I was expecting to follow the accounting trail, but then, as it happened, then I enjoyed the finance side more and more of a consulting approach to it. So keep your options open is the first bit of advice, and all experience is good experience.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So my experience is specifically within audit, and whilst not directly transferable into the role that I do now,
it's the corporate
and
knowledge.
a lot of the background accounting information is so valuable, because a lot of my peers, often in more senior positions, might not understand something that I do because of my experience there.
So for reference, Chris did like a placement year at one of the big 4 in audit.
That was at PwC, one of the big 4 in audit, and then used the experience from there to be able to translate that into my new role.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
the
you for having me.
Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. If you've got any other questions for Chris, then comment them below and we'll make sure he gets back to you on those.
More than happy
Thank
to
you so
respond.
much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.